The night the drums cried was the night everything broke. In Umoka village, drums only cried when death was near. Little Obinna lay on a mat beside his mother, listening to the deep sound travel through the air like a wounded animal. His heart beat fast, like it wanted to run away from his chest. His mother, Nneka, held him tight, but her hands were shaking. Outside, torches moved like angry fireflies, and shadows danced on the mud walls. Obinna felt something cold inside him, even though the night was warm. He did not know why, but tears filled his eyes. That was the night he learned that traditions can kill and that some secrets are buried with blood. Umoka was an old Igbo village surrounded by thick forests and red earth roads. The people respected elders, spirits, and traditions passed down for hundreds of years. Children were taught to bow, listen, and never question customs. At the center of the village stood the Nnukwu Osisi, the big tree where elders met to judge matters of life. Stories said the tree drank human tears. Obinna grew up hearing these stories and believing them. His father, Okore, was a brave hunter, loved by many. His mother sold palm oil and sang softly while working. Life was simple, but simple lives can hide dark rules, rules no child should ever face. One rule was never spoken loudly. It was called the forbidden tradition. When children asked about it, elders would cough or shout. Mothers would cover their ears. The rule said that when the village spirit was angry, a perfect child must be given to calm it. No one said kill, they said give. Obinna once asked his friend Ifunanya what it meant. She cried and ran away. That day, Obinna knew the tradition was real. He did not know it was watching him, waiting, smiling in the dark like a snake under leaves. The trouble started when the river dried up. Fish died, farms failed, babies cried from hunger. The elders said the gods were angry. They poured wine on the ground and broke kola nuts, but nothing changed. Then lightning struck the shrine without rain. That night, the chief priest screamed in his sleep. The next morning, the drums cried. People gathered, whispering like scared birds. Obinna saw fear on faces that never feared anything. His mother pulled him close. His father stood tall, but his eyes were hard. The elders had decided the forbidden tradition had awakened again. At the big tree, the elders sat in a circle. Their voices were low but sharp. The chief priest raised his staff and spoke words older than the village. "The spirit wants a child," he said. Women wailed, men clenched fists. The rules were clear. The child must be strong, pure, and from a respected family. Names were whispered. Obinna felt his mother's body stiffen. She shook her head again and again, like she was fighting the air. Then Obinna heard his name. Just one word, Obinna. The world stopped breathing. Nneka screamed like her soul was tearing apart. She fell to the ground, holding Obinna, covering him with her body. "Take me," she cried. "Take my blood, my life." The elders looked away. The chief priest said the tradition could not change. Okore stepped forward, his voice shaking with rage. "This is madness," he shouted. "We are killing our own children." Murmurs rose. Some agreed. Others shouted him down. Tradition was stronger than love. Obinna felt hands pulling him away. His mother's scream followed him like fire. They locked Obinna in a mud hut near the shrine. The air smelled of fear and old smoke. Outside, guards sat with spears. Obinna cried until his throat hurt. He called for his mother. No answer. He called for his father. Silence. The moon watched him through a crack in the wall. He remembered stories of children who entered the shrine and never returned. His small hands shook. He promised the gods he would be good. He promised anything, but the gods did not answer. That night, something strange happened. A soft voice called Obinna. "Obinna." He looked around, shaking. The voice came again from the wall. A small hole opened and two eyes appeared. It was Ifunanya. She whispered, "Your father sent me." Hope jumped inside Obinna like light. She passed him water and food. "They will take you tomorrow," she said, crying. "Your father is angry. He is planning something." Obinna's heart beat fast. Planning what? Fighting elders meant death. Meanwhile, Okore walked like a wounded lion. Rage burned in him. He went to the elders again. Begging turned to shouting. "This tradition is evil," he roared. "How many children must die?" The chief priest slapped the ground with his staff. "You speak like a madman," he said. "The gods choose." Okore's friends pulled him back. Some men secretly agreed with him, but fear closed their mouths. That night, Okore sharpened his machete. He kissed his wife's forehead and said, "I will not lose my son." Before dawn, drums beat again. Women cried. Obinna was dragged from the hut. His legs felt weak. He saw his mother tied to a tree, watched by guards so she would not interfere. Her eyes met his, full of pain. The chief priest began chants. Fire burned. Smoke filled the air. Obinna screamed. Suddenly, a shout cut through the noise. "Stop!" Okore ran into the circle with other men. Spears clashed. Chaos exploded. People screamed and ran. Rage met fear. Okore fought like thunder. He pushed elders aside and grabbed Obinna. Blood spilled on the red earth. A guard fell. The chief priest cursed loudly. "The gods will punish us," he shouted. Okore did not care. He ran into the forest with Obinna on his back. Arrows flew. One caught Okore's arm. He did not stop. Behind them, the village burned with anger. Some villagers shouted for their return. Some prayed. The forbidden tradition had been broken, and traditions never forgive easily. Deep in the forest, Obinna walked beside his wounded father. Each step felt heavy. Ahead lay unknown lands. Behind lay death and tradition. Obinna looked back once, hearing distant drums beat again, slow and angry. His father squeezed his hand. "The gods may chase us," he said, "but we will run." The forest closed behind them. The forbidden tradition was wounded, but not dead. The days blurred into one. Okori and Obinna traveled deep into the forest, moving silently under the thick canopy of trees. Obinna's legs were sore and his stomach growled, but his father refused to stop. The village was far behind, but Obinna could still hear the distant echoes of drums in his mind. He wondered if his mother was still alive. He wondered if the village would ever forgive them. The further they went, the more the trees seemed to press in on them, like they were being swallowed by the earth. There was no safe place in the world for them anymore, not while the tradition still lived. One evening, as they sat by a quiet stream, Obinna asked, "Papa, why do the elders believe the tradition is right? Why do they want to kill children like me?" Okori's face twisted in pain. His eyes, once full of strength, now showed weariness. He looked at his son, his heart heavy with regret. "The tradition is old, Obinna. It has been there before our ancestors. It was created in fear, fear of the gods, fear of the spirits. They believed that by giving a child, they could keep the village safe. But sometimes those who believe in these things forget that children are not sacrifices. We are not pawns in their games." He stopped, his voice shaking. "I should have fought sooner, but fear kept us all silent." Obinna sat quietly, trying to understand his father's words. He didn't fully understand what fear meant, but he could feel it, inside his heart, deep in the pit of his stomach. Fear was what made people do terrible things. It was what had forced his mother to scream for him to be taken, and what had made the elders shout for his blood. It was what had nearly destroyed them all. "Papa," Obinna said softly, "do you think the tradition will ever end, or will it keep hunting us forever?" Okori's voice was low, full of sadness. "The tradition can end, Obinna, but only if we make it end, only if we stop running." Days turned into weeks, and the father and son grew closer. They lived off what the forest gave them, fruits, nuts, and the occasional fish. But despite the beauty around them, Obinna couldn't forget the past. He couldn't forget the faces of the villagers, the fear in his mother's eyes, or the sound of the drums that had haunted him. And even now, as the rain fell softly around them, he couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was following them, watching from the shadows. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Okori stopped suddenly. His hand shot out, grabbing Obinna by the arm. "Listen," he whispered. Obinna froze, his heart racing. There was a faint sound in the distance. Footsteps, soft but steady. Okori looked around, his eyes narrowing. "We are not alone." Obinna felt his chest tighten. "The villagers?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe," Okori replied grimly, "but we're not staying to find out." They quickly gathered their things and moved deeper into the forest, moving silently through the underbrush. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Obinna's stomach twisted with fear. He wanted to scream, but he knew his father was right. They had to run, or they would be caught. They ran for what seemed like hours, the sound of pursuers growing nearer. Eventually, they reached a narrow river. The water was swift, but not too deep. Okori motioned for Obinna to follow him, but just as they reached the water's edge, a shout echoed from behind them. "Stop!" a voice yelled. Obinna turned to see the flickering torchlights cutting through the trees. It was the village guards. Okori grabbed Obinna's arm and pulled him into the river. "Hold on to me!" he shouted. The river was cold and fast, but Okori's grip was strong. Obinna held on to his father's back, trying to keep his head above the water as they were swept downstream. The current was powerful, pulling them faster than Obinna could have imagined. He looked back and saw the torches on the bank, then heard more voices shouting. "Don't let them escape!" one of the guards shouted. The water was rushing so quickly that the village sounds began to fade into the distance, and soon it was just the rush of the river and the beating of Obinna's heart. They didn't stop until they reached a small hidden cave on the other side of the river. Okori pulled himself out of the water, then helped Obinna. The father and son collapsed inside the cave, gasping for breath. Okori's arms trembled, and Obinna could see the deep cut on his father's side, bleeding slowly. "Papa," Obinna said, his voice full of concern, "you're hurt." "I'll be fine," Okori said, though his voice was weak. "We've bought some time, but we have to keep moving. They won't stop looking for us." Obinna nodded, but inside he was terrified. He had no idea how long longer they could run. How long could they hide from the village that would never forgive them? The days passed slowly in the cave, and Okori's wound worsened. Obinna did his best to tend to his father, using leaves and water from the river to clean the injury. They couldn't stay here forever, but Okori was too weak to move. Obinna felt the weight of their situation pressing down on him. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the village would never stop. They would keep hunting them, keep trying to force the tradition back into place until one of them was dead. He couldn't run forever. One evening, as Obinna sat by the river, his mind racing, Obinna saw something strange. A figure standing on the opposite bank, just watching him. The figure was tall and cloaked in shadows, its face hidden. Obinna felt his heart skip a beat. Was it a villager? A guard? The figure raised a hand, beckoning him to come closer. Obinna hesitated. It could be dangerous. It could be a trap. But something about the figure called to him, a strange pull deep in his chest.